I'm sure some of you will think this is really obvious, but no two champions play the same way. Yes, there are similarities, but all of them have differences that you need to respect. The reason I'm making this video is because many one-tricks ask for advice on what champion or champions they should pick if their one-trick is banned and or taken. People will latch onto one particular aspect that they like and not think about the other factors that will influence their decisions on that particular character. Allow me to give some examples for each role. Top lane, Malphite and Ornn. They'll think AoE knock-up tank, so just play them the same way, right? No. Malphite and Ornn play very differently, because Malphite's ultimate is unstoppable and you're just trying to hit as many people as possible. Just go flying in over a wall. But with Ornn, there's a lot more setup required. His ultimate takes longer, but he has more options. With his wall, he can use it to control terrain because people can't go through certain areas without being threatened by his E. So if you try to R straight into the enemy team playing both champions, one's going to work way better than the other. For jungle, Briar and Warwick. A lot of people when Briar was released thought, oh, she must be very like Warwick, because they're both lifesteal champions. While there is some truth in that they both like to be fighting at low HP, that's about the only thing that's similar between them. The way that they play out their fights is vastly different. The way they set up ganks is very different as well. Briar's ultimate takes a lot more setup than Warwick's ultimate because you have to be careful about the enemy dodging it, whereas Warwick, while it is missable, it's a lot easier to land generally because it's faster. Not to mention, Briar straight up makes it where you cannot use your champion at times. While Briar and Warwick's E both have crowd control and reduced damage, they're going to be used at different times. Briar needs to consider if she's going to need to use her E to get out of being in Berserk, as well as if she can get a stun on the wall. But if Warwick uses his E at the start of the fight, it's sometimes not as big of a deal. Sometimes it's even correct to do that, because it can line up well with his Q. Mid lane, Orianna and Syndra. They both control space with an orb. In Syndra's case, she has multiple, but their ranges and the way that they're going to play in a fight is very different. ADC, Ashe and Jinx. Sure, they both have global ultimates, but the times that you're going to be using them is different. Jinx is going to be using her ultimate to finish off a target, get her passive going, whereas Ashe is using her ultimate at the beginning to set up the pick with the CC. Support, Blitzcrank and Thresh. They're both hook champions, but their hooks act very differently. Blitzcrank pulls the champion all the way to him, whereas Thresh only pulls it a little bit, and then he can decide if he wants to go in or remain at a distance. Blitzcrank has to land his hook to gain value. Thresh does not, because he can use it for mobility. He can use it to get over a wall, he can use it onto a minion to get closer to a target. What I'm trying to get at is that this is one of the main reasons that one-tricks struggle to learn another champion. They try to play them the same way without understanding how different they can be. It's actually easier for a lot of one-tricks to pick a champion that is a little bit similar, but for the most part very different. A little bit of similarity could be something like melee, range, tanky, squishy. You don't want to go too far out of your comfort zone to where it's really ridiculous to try to pick up, but you don't want to be in a situation where you start to try to play them the same way. You don't need to do something like Kindred and Mumu. If you play Rammus jungle, maybe you could play something like Jarvan. There are some similarities in tankiness and mobility, but overall it should be pretty easy to distinguish between how you should be playing the two champions. Of course, when deciding for yourself, you should know best on what is easiest for you to figure out, but just keep this in mind. How similar do you actually want to play the champions? Or do you think it'd be a little bit easier, spread out a little bit?